Well, world leaders have left Glasgow. The Climate Change Summit has wrapped up, and as they flew out on their private jets, what did they leave behind in terms of achievements? More than 40 world leaders, including from Australia, the US, India and China, have agreed to fast-track clean and affordable green technology by 2030. But what of the binding emissions targets? Joining me live now is Freya from the Australian Conservation Foundation. Freya, it is very late there in Glasgow. We really appreciate you joining us live. Appreciate it. Look, from where we sit this morning, it is hard to see that there have been any big achievements out of Glasgow. None of the big emitters seem to be on the same page. So is it a little bit, I guess, pessimistic of me to say it's been a complete capitulation?
Well, I suppose, Laura, we can't say that just yet, but what I can say is Australia is in that group of climate laggards. And the Prime Minister and his entourage have flown out now, and that is what they brought to Glasgow was dismal. Today the US led a coalition of more than 100 countries to slash emissions by 30% by 2030. Of course, Australia wasn't on that list, but we're talking about a US-led coalition, one of Australia's closest, if not the absolute closest friend of Australia, leading this push. So, yeah, I'm not going to say it's a complete failure yet, but certainly Australia didn't bring anything here to Glasgow to be excited about. Yeah,
certainly it wasn't, making headlines in terms of ambitious commitments, but the world doesn't vote in an upcoming Australian election. That's probably what Scott Morrison had a bit of an ear to, and also the Nationals without going into all of that. But when you look at the biggest emitters, I mean, India wants $1 trillion from richer countries. China says the same, and they're not committing to phasing out coal. So is there being pressure put on India and China too?
There absolutely is. And I think you do need to separate China and India in terms of wealth. And there is a responsibility on wealthy developed countries to ramp up climate finance to make sure every country, no matter where they are in terms of wealth, can implement practical solutions to cut emissions so we can try to stop runaway climate change. And as for China not being here, we can't focus on that. Australia can't focus on that. We actually need to be leaders in this. We've got a great opportunity to be leaders, and so far we're not. And Laura, you mentioned the federal election. That's coming up, and the Australian Conservation Foundation has done the biggest climate poll, and we know that a majority of Australians want to see stronger climate action this decade.
Are any other countries, I should say, taking this technology, not taxes approach?
No, nothing like Australia, not that I can see. I stood at the Australian Pavilion today, and Energy Minister Angus Taylor spruiked an unproven and multi-billion-dollar technology run by Santos, a huge gas company. Now, the thing about carbon storage, we've already got that solution, and it's really simple. It's trees. It is the most simple carbon storage that you could imagine. And certainly as a conservation foundation, that's what we need to focus on, the technology that is here now, and it is proven, and it doesn't cost billions of taxpayer dollars.
Indeed. Well, before we let you go, the climate summit, world leaders have gone, so the main stage is over. So what happens now? The negotiators stay behind and try and weave together the commitments that the leaders have made?
Yeah, that's right. So huge high-level negotiations are happening behind the scenes, but there's also so many side events of people who have working technology that they're teaching everybody that's here. And certainly the environment movement from Australia, there's a group of us, a small but mighty group of us, and we will be staying here until the very end to get as much out of this conference as possible. So when we come home to Australia, and certainly in the lead up to election, we will have lots up our sleeve to be able to tell the Australian public something to be hopeful for, because Laura, that's really important. No matter what the outcome of this conference is, the Australian Conservation Foundation will keep fighting beyond this 2 weeks to reduce emissions and create a safe and healthy future for Australians.
Freya, we really appreciate your time. Enjoy the last couple of days at Glasgow. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura.